Now let's bring in ABC News consultant Jariko Denman, former Army Ranger who served 15 combat tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He is home safe now. As you can see, he's here with us from Kabul after he and other veterans spent an awful lot of time getting Afghan allies and their families out of the country, leaving just a half hour before last week's deadly terror attack. Jariko, thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for your efforts over the last couple of weeks, and thanks for your service, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Before we discuss your work on the ground in Afghanistan, I want to get your reaction on today's announcement that the U.S. military has withdrawn for good after 20 years.
Yeah, that's an announcement that I think a lot of us thought that we had come to grips with happening at some point, and I'm just now realizing, as some of my peers that I've been communicating with, that we hadn't, and it did hit like a ton of bricks for a lot of us, and it's something that we're going to have to, really process and sit with for the weeks and months and maybe years to come until it finally kind of sinks in.
Yeah, I mean, it feels surreal, I would guess, after 15 combat tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and now suddenly after 20 years. In recent days, you risked your own life again after 15 combat tours to get Afghan citizens out of their own country. Setting aside the obvious humanitarian reasons, why was this so important to you?
For me, it was a continuation of the commitment that we'd made to that country, and in watching the Afghan government, ANDSF, fall so fast, I had it in my mind, and I know a lot of other veterans had it in theirs, that we could glean some goodness out of the whole mess of the last month in saving our partners and getting the people that were committed to the plans that we had for their country, getting them out and letting them continue to pursue happiness in the world.
We understand in order to do that, you had to work through some unofficial channels to get these folks out. First, was that your only recourse? And if it was, what does that say to you about the official efforts on the ground?
It wasn't the only recourse, but it's not really my style or the style of a lot of my peers to just sit back and depend on somebody else to do something. I wanted to go in and actually participate and do everything I could, and additionally use the skills that we've built over the last 20 years, building those innovative, adaptive skills into attacking this new problem set, and yeah, just didn't want to depend on somebody else to do the work. Also, we knew the active duty folks on the ground had their plates full with the withdrawal, and the swiftness of how much the operating environment changed. It necessitated some things that were a little different.
Understood. Well, you're back home now. You're a combat veteran, as we mentioned. You've seen an awful lot, more than most people can fathom. So tell me, if you will, what are some of the images that you saw this past week that will stay with you?
I talked about it last week with some people at home, and 15 combat deployments. This was the worst thing I ever saw. I think it's contextual. You go to combat, you expect to see certain things. When I went to the airport there, I didn't expect to see these things. The sheer desperation, the loss of life, the humanitarian just mess, as well as watching our own troops just doing things that are just out of context and doing great things, but being in a situation where they were also just figuring it out on the fly. So, the images I saw, like I said, it was the worst situation I've seen in all 15 of those deployments, if you want to count that one as 16.
So the U.S. military, as you know, is out now, but there are still countless allies that are left behind, some trying to escape over land to neighboring countries. You know the terrain better than most. How worried are you about those folks?
I'm extremely worried. It's it's something a lot of people are trying to figure out right now, and trying to, crack the egg on that and figure out how to do this. Afghanistan, as we learned over the last 20 years, is one of the most topographically challenging places on Earth to operate. It's a huge piece of bottlenecks and funnels, and a lot of countries have learned that by fighting there. So it's going to be challenging, but I have faith in my peers and the people that have been working this problem to get it solved and get more of our friends out.
Faith in your peers. Let me ask you this question. Do you have faith in the U.S.-Taliban relationship in terms of diplomacy? You spent a lot of time in country. Do you think this is the same Taliban we encountered 20 years ago? And if not, how did they change?
I don't think they did change. I think they're the same Taliban. I think that they were waiting for us to leave. There are already, rumblings and rumors of them, popping up and rearing their head and acting like the Taliban of old. So I absolutely don't trust that they're going to make good on the Taliban 2.0 lie.
Well, we're just going to have to watch and hope, I guess. You say faith, we can all hope. Jariko Denman, thank you so much for taking the time, giving us your expertise tonight. And again, thank you for all of your service.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.